Everyone, welcome back to House Mars TV for the first part in our fan discussion series. I'm over here with Abe, absolute huge fan of Red Rising. We're going to go through and run through some questions, talk about the first three books, and some Red God predictions. Abe, would you like to say anything before we roll into the questions?
I would just say that I'm super excited to talk about Red Rising in general. I think that it is a severely underrated franchise and series that deserves some more love. So I am happy to give it some love and talk today.
100% agree. We got the questions right here. So, first one I'm going to go into right now. We'll just start with the intro question. So, how did you discover the series?
So my girlfriend is a big reader, and she thought that I would like that we both would like it. So we started listening to the audiobook, originally of the original Red Rising. And I was like kind of into it, but I didn't really like fully understand. And then we were kind of halfway through, life got in the way, school got busy,
Yep.
and so I stopped reading it. But then I was like, oh, I should finish it. I was intrigued enough to come back to it. Finished it, and then I was like, oh man, this is really good. I should give Golden Sun a try. Golden Sun was really great. And then I was like, okay, well now I'm in deep, and now I have to know what happens. And so it just kept going and going and going. And my girlfriend does not like the series. I don't. She has not read anything past about halfway through Red Rising.
Uh huh.
And I think she would like it. But in her words, and I kind of agree, it is kind of boy book a little bit.
It is
I think
definitely a
it's for
bit.
everyone.
Yeah, I tried to get my wife into it, and she powered through. So she promised me she would read Red Rising if I read the Empyrean series. So anyone who knows like
Okay.
Fourth Wing, she's big into fantasy and romance. So I pushed my way through that series, and she pushed her way through Red Rising. But
Yeah.
no, definitely interesting. And so you started off with the audiobook, not the reading
Yeah.
it, right?
Yes, and that's the way I read all of them originally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Tim Jared Reynolds does a phenomenal job with the
Oh
inflection and
yeah.
the different voices he can do for different characters. And it was really, really immersive. Also, it helped that I really like to listen to audiobooks when I'm driving in the car. So for
Yep.
the past, you know, 6 months, I was listening to the audiobooks while I was just driving around because I did a lot of driving. But I have in the past couple of weeks started buying the original or the physical copies of each of the books, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna physically read them so I can hopefully get like the experience that way as well. But
Yeah. See, I love Tim Jared Reynolds now, but when I first started reading, my friend recommended it to me, and I didn't download the audiobook, I just downloaded the regular book. So I fell into that trap where I had the voices in my head of how I thought they would sound. And then I heard Tim Jared Reynolds, and I was like, that's not quite what I was thinking. But then as I
right,
continued to listen to it, because I have a pretty decent commute every day, and I just listened to this series on repeat, and it got better and better every time I heard him.
yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things with this series is that I have talked about this with some of the people that I've recommended it to, is that there seems to be a distinct lack of fan art or other media in this series. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like you see something once or you hear something once like you did, and that's the way it is in your mind. And then you see something else and you go, that's not how I expected Darrow to look or Severo to look.
Hmm.
And so, it's kind of I think that is one of the weaknesses of this series is that there's not a lot of other media rather than just the books.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the great things about it is that because there seems to be like a lot of wiggle room, right? So like if you're just reading it or you're just listening to the book yourself, there's so much imagination that you have the ability
Yeah.
to think of. And while there are some definite things that sometimes people when they discover it are really confused and they're like, oh, you know, I didn't know Quicksilver was black, or I like, oh,
Right.
I didn't know
Or
that this person had blonde hair. And,
right.
and it's still cool that like you can enjoy the series in your own mind. But I
Hmm.
think once you start seeing the world solidify as Pierce Brown imagined it, it adds a whole new layer of enjoyment to it.
And yeah, I agree. There's so much in these books, and a lot of the times there's so much happening that you might really struggle to understand what these characters look like. Like there definitely is text and canon that Pierce Brown has said that these people look like, but like the Telemanuses are like a Polynesian family, if I'm correct. And so like you look at that and like, wow, that's like they look completely different to how Darrow would look or how Nero would look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. One of my favorite parts of the series is how many different cultures Pierce Brown brings into it. And the way that he combines them as well, I think is super interesting. Like the Ra, and the Rim Dominion. Their
Right.
last name is Egyptian, but apparently they have Japanese heritage. But for some reason, there's
Right.
also like South African dialect and phrases there too. So I think it's really cool how he really did make a world where they tore down everything that was happening on Earth, and everyone just took what they had with them because they combined
Right.
everyone from all these different countries and places, and basically restructured them. So one of my favorite things.
Yeah. With the
Um,
bits and pieces. Yep.
well, certainly a rabbit hole for how you discovered the series. So I
Yeah.
assume you're
Yeah.
all the way
Yeah.
caught up now in Lightbringer, yeah?
Yes.
All
I
right.
have read I read all the way through Lightbringer.
So which of
Yeah.
these is going to
I
be
I
your
don't have to say much more.
your favorite book? And so before we keep going, I'm just going to go ahead and say, spoiler alert to anyone who's out listening to this right now or watching this. If you haven't finished the series, go ahead and finish it. But what's your favorite book and why?
I think it's really tough because I think that Iron Gold and Red Rising are kind of in the lower tier for me, not because they're bad, but just because some book has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then to me, Golden Sun, Morning Star, Dark Age, and Lightbringer are all really, really close. I personally really, really liked Lightbringer. Or not Lightbringer, sorry, Morning Star. I
Mm-hmm.
liked Lightbringer too, don't get me wrong. But Morning Star to me was like the initial fulfillment of Darrow's path. Um, and like I think that you could have stopped it there,
Yeah.
right? Like Pierce Brown definitely didn't want to and definitely didn't intend it to because there's the whole scene at the end of the book where the Ash Lord is still a very big threat, and so that makes a
Right.
lot of sense to continue the next trilogy. But you could have ended that story there, and Darrow could have been Darrow. It could have been done.
Yeah.
And so
It
I
great
think that
closure.
yeah, and so I think that the the secondary trilogy is really really good still, but there's a special place for Morningstar in terms of I think even then a lot of the characters are pretty much developed.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can kind of see it with Cassius, right? Like Cassius kind of comes back to Darrow, back to his heart even then, and then kind of runs away from it in the second series. But you can see the like at least the development of a lot of those characters. You can see the development of Virginia and Darrow's relationship. Lysander obviously is a big open question, and that drives a lot of the development in the second series.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see it with Victor and Severo too. Like a lot of the main characters are kind of developed, and I would argue that especially in the secondary trilogy, we don't see a lot of people grow, especially until Morningstar, other than Darrow, right?
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of people change. Mustang is kind of the same way. Dancer is maybe a little bit of a more dynamic character, um, but we see Lysander really be driven. And so I just think that Morningstar was such a great wrap up of that initial trilogy. And it has some great moments in it as well, which I won't. I'll try not to like say too many spoilers unless I'm directly prompted, because if there are people who are listening to this who want to kind of know the big picture maybe, but don't want to know everything,
Right.
try to keep it as spoiler free as I can. But yeah, some great moments.
Yep, 100%. And so before we get to the next question, I just want to say there's a lot of people, if you're on the Red Rising Reddit, I see this question all the time, and everyone's like, should I keep reading this series? Or I can't believe this just happened. It makes me so mad. I don't even want to finish the book. And my response to all of that is read the series, right? Like,
Yeah,
people will ask questions
absolutely.
like, oh, what does this mean? Or I can't believe this happened. And while the series isn't finished yet, we have 6 of 7 books out right now. And if you read all of those books, you will actually learn so much, right? Like almost all of your questions will be answered, and anything that you're really mad about, with the exception of possibly some character deaths, it, like gets resolved and you find out about it, So like everyone who's complaining, everyone's like, oh man, Like, I don't know if I can finish the series. It's like, finish the series, read the books, you will love
Yes,
it.
yes. And I also think to back that up, there's the line near the end of Lightbringer where Darrow says, "I'm coming home. I have an army. I have an armada. We will win for blank for blank for blank for blank." I
Mm,
won't spoil. Again, I'm trying not to say too much. If we get down that tangent, well, I'll say those names. But that's what Red God is going to be, and we can talk about that later too. But Red God is going to be Darrow's culminating moment where Darrow is fighting for the people he's lost, and
oh
he
yeah.
has before, but it's totally different
Hmm.
because there's no like he has his chance again, and I feel like he hasn't had his chance for the last three books. He was on the back foot always, and now we might see something a little different.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on from that for the rest of our intro questions, who's your favorite character and why? It seems like you're a big fan of the first trilogy. So is your favorite
Yeah.
character from that? Are we looking at a second trilogy character?
My favorite character that it's kind of hard to call. So my favorite character I think is Darrow. I think it's his story, and I think it's really easy to say Darrow.
Right.
But he's very lovable. He's very complex, and he makes for great characters. And I think he's my favorite character because he also drives a lot of the other characters. I will say my other favorite character that I think is kind of an oddball. I really adore Thraxa. Thraxa Telemanus, who is a second trilogy character, is a phenomenal character. Not a very complex character as we know her,
Hmm.
but is super badass. I mean,
Oh yeah.
she is really, really, really cool.
Yeah, one of the things that I like most about Thraxa is how genuine she is. So right, so some people might say
Yeah.
she's one dimensional, but I view it as her being just straight up honest, brutally honest about what her character is. You know, she doesn't really change
Right.
throughout the series. She's pretty stalwart in her beliefs, and you know whether or not she supports the Republic, she supports Darrow and she stands by him. And you know she's a dog of war. Like she loves going out there and crushing skulls,
Yeah.
and she is so true to that at every step of the way.
Yeah. And I think that she's also interesting because I think a lot of the I do kind of one of my gripes with the series is that the female representation in the book is I think better than most people would maybe think it is. Like I think Victra and Mustang are very strong characters. Even people like Theodora, Deanna, I mean Io especially too, right? It started with Io,
Mm-hmm.
but Thraxa is like Darrow, but only as a female.
Right.
And so I mean, she's her own person. She's a lot more complex. But Darrow, Thraxa is that apex soldier that Darrow is, and like that Mustang isn't. Mustang is not the best fighter. She's there for her politics, her brain, and she's
Right.
better at Darrow than that.
Yeah.
But I think Thraxa serves as a nice sort of refreshing taste to the battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
because of her character.
For sure. Okay, so moving on from that, all personal answers right now. If you were thrown into the Red Rising universe, what color do you think you'd be and why?
We were talking about this before. I probably would be an orange. I probably would be. They'd probably throw me in the engineering unit. That's probably where I would actually go. I would. I think it's a lot of people who read these books dream to be a gold that falls in an iron rain. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that that would be awesome. Awesome in the sense of like I wouldn't have to actually die. If I could just like run through the motions, it would be awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they'd probably stick me in the engineering unit. I'd probably be in a cubicle or some government facility doing some work. Pretty honest answer, but pretty boring answer.
All right, cool. I like it. And then last intro question: if you became a part of the Howlers, what do you think your Howler name might be, or what do you think might kind of like fit your persona?
I don't think I would make it into the Howlers. I don't think I'm that elite.
Brutally honest.
But yeah, um, this is tough because I feel like it's you. There's no good answer, and I think it's like what Cassie says, like you don't get to pick your own nickname.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Wise Guy. I kind of like Screw Face's like two word name, so I kind of took some inspiration from Screwface there and chose Wise Guy. So, but I'd like to hear what your answer is because I bet you've thought about this a lot too.
So mine or what I think you might be from what we've said so far.
No, what you think yours would be?
So right, I'm in the military. So I think I'd be a gray. I actually had a really cool opportunity during Operation Hazard Bedlam 3 or 2, I can't remember which. I actually got one of like the prime prizes, and I won.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I won an invitation to a dinner with Pierce Brown. And
Wow.
yeah, so just recently, I transitioned from being a helicopter pilot to a data analyst. But when I went to that dinner with, I think there were about 15 fans who made it in. Um, I we all introduced ourselves, and Pierce Brown was like, "Oh, well, you're a helicopter pilot. I guess it'll be Hilo." So I think obviously that could
Oh,
be a cool one. Now, if I were to pick one
I
myself, or something that might like fit me and who I am, uh, wow, shoot. Now I'm on the spot. I didn't think you'd turn this question on me. I don't know. Oh man, like, and huge.
I think that you've gotten given a Howler name by Howler One. I think that Hilo is a pretty sick one.
Yeah,
Um,
and I so kind of like how you said the 2 words. I'm a fan of the 1 word howler names. So
okay.
short and sweet. Hilo. I'll go ahead and stick
Yeah.
with that by order of Howler One himself.
Yeah. Wow. That is super cool.
A little information about myself during this fan discussion. But hey, unless you have
Yeah.
anything else, Abe, I say we go straight into the first trilogy and the questions we have for
Yeah,
that.
let's keep going.
All right. So what's your favorite scene from the first trilogy?
I thought about this a lot, and I think it's from Morningstar, and it's either Wakey Wakey Goblin or it's I am Severo Barker and I am no longer afraid. And I think it's this. I think it's the latter. The more
Mm-hmm.
I think about it, I think again that's what I was talking about earlier. Like that's Severo's character development.
Yeah.
He he understands who he is. He understands his place, but he also understands the needs of the people in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so he sacrifices himself. He attempts to sacrifice himself, let's say, um, to save Cassius, to save the the Rising, to save all the gold on that ship, to save himself,
Mm-hmm.
to save the Low Colors from any sort of future conflict. Um, and so that scene was really beautiful. I'm pretty sure I cried when I listened to it. But that's when I that was one of the first times that I really looked at the book and I went, wow, this is like really, really complex. It is really moving. And I was like, man, this is where Pierce Brown's starting to get me, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of series they have characters that are as complex as the characters in Red Rising, but Pierce Brown has so many more characters who go through that level of complexity than I think other series do. Like Severo basically getting stomped on by Darrow and saying like, "Hey, you're not that guy, pal. I'm that guy." Right? And then Severo, he finally
Yeah.
gets to discover like who he really is and like what he can do, and he always thought he was small and not good enough, and he realized that this is where his strength is, right? He may not be able to lead the Rising, but he can still lead, he can still show his quality of character and stuff like that. So what did you think of Darrow's rise in the Institute? Do you think he did
See,
it
this is when
right?
I think he did do it right. I mean, I think there's the scene where he is getting whipped by Pax, and he kind of gets up and he stands up. He gives his speech to the rest of House Mars, and he kind of in his head says, "I'm learning."
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's an experience for him too. I think that the when the Sons of Ares were smaller and like that, I think that it was as much of an opportunity for them to infiltrate the society as it was for Darrow to learn about himself and about how to lead. Because I mean, we know that Titus was also a red, or, a Sons of Ares operative, but
Mm-hmm.
he didn't take it that way. He was the antitype to Darrow. He was cruel and he was mean and he was angry, and Darrow was angry too. But Darrow was smarter and wiser and maybe more compassionate too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that what surprised me the most was that how he was able to get people to flock to him. I think if I'm remembering correctly, the backstory of the Andromeda's family is that they're like from Pluto, and his parents are dead, and he's kind of a nobody. And so the fact that he is able to draw all of these people, create the Howlers, win the Institute, is kind of surprising to me. I think it obviously has to happen for the plot to make sense, and I think
Right.
it does make sense once you read it. But it is kind of interesting that he beats out the Bologna family, he beats out the Augustus family.
Yeah. Yeah, all the old blood families, the people with the lineage from the conquerings.
Right.
Here, give me 1 second, real quick. Actually, sorry about that. My wife is being a supportive wife and going to get me a drink.
Shout out.
But
Shout out.
yeah, drinking Guinness for anyone who's a Guinness fan out there. But one of the cool things that I really liked about Darrow's Rise in the Institute is he didn't just lead with charisma, he led with humility, and
Right.
golds don't have humility, and for anyone who's
Mhm.
looking back on it that was maybe in the Institute with Darrow, they were probably like, duh, why didn't I see the signs? But humility is actually a great trait to have as a leader. But my I guess my one critique that I would have is Darrow's like method of leadership, I think really only works with small groups, right? So you have houses where there's 50 people per house, 12 houses, quick math, I guess that's like 600 people, right? Um,
Yeah.
but Virginia said it like now everyone knows they can just have you whipped whenever they want you to because they'll just mess up themselves. And for someone who's in charge of like 10 million people, well, every time one person does something bad, if you whip yourself, you're going to spend your entire day getting whipped. Um, but even with that, he still evolved to have that large scale leadership as well. But as someone
Yeah.
who sees like that small level leadership, I think it was great. I just think he really lucked out that everybody liked him enough and decided
Yeah.
not to see how
Yeah.
many times they could get him whipped. All
Yeah, I
right.
think I like what you said about humility, because that, if you really think about it, like you look at Arcos, you look at Lorna Arcos, and you understand how he is referred to as like one of the last true Iron Golds, but he's humble in by gold standards, right? He's still pretty pompous and great, but
Yeah.
Lorne tries to be humble, and I think obviously Daryl learned a lot from Lorne. And I think kind of takes that in stride.
Yeah, for sure. I really like that whole like humble aspect to it. And a little bit of a tangent. I think that that's like one of the main issues with Golds is that they believed that their station just made them better and they didn't have the humility to balance it out. And eventually like people learn that sort of arrogance. They pick it up. You can see it with Cassius. He was an arrogant
Right.
young teenager, old money, old blood, lineage going back hundreds of years, and he just like talks down to people. And talking down to people is really not a great way to get them to follow you or like you. Well, before we start digging down that rabbit hole even more, if you went to the Institute, I know you said you probably wouldn't get selected as a gold, but let's say, hey, you made it. What house do you think you might get placed in? If you happen to know the character traits and whatnot associated with the
Yes.
houses.
I mean, I did a little bit of looking, and I again, this is one of the things I really like struggle with Red Rising, is like the Red Rising wiki, and like Reddit is a really good place to get information, but it's kind of tough sometimes to find this information. But I think I would be in House Minerva. I think I would have hung out with Mustang,
Mm,
used that kind of wisdom in leadership rather than force in leadership, to maybe make my way through. But another little side tangent, I was at Half Price Books yesterday, just looking for any Pierce Brown books or any other books that I might like to pick up. And the one thing I was not expecting to find was the Red Rising board game, um, at Half
yeah.
Price Books. I don't know if you own it, but it is a super fun board game where you get to play as the houses, and it is a really really good board game. So if you're a fan of Red Rising and you like board games, it's great. My girlfriend, like I mentioned, not a big Red Rising fan, but loved the board game. Just a big board game player. But it is a super cool thing. And so you get to play as the houses. Yeah, I'd probably play as House Minerva.
See, I'm glad you said that because I've had the Red Rising board game for probably almost 2 years at this point. Like it is still wrapped in plastic, and I've never played it because I don't really have anyone nearby who likes the series as much as I do, or is as familiar with it. And I think it's optimized for like minimum four players or minimum three players,
I
something
think
like
so.
that.
You can play it solo. You can play it with two, um, but I bet it would be a little bit better with some more people. I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a super fun game. Um,
Yeah, and as
the
far
the
as
guy who made it is a really good game designer.
yeah, the cool thing too is since it's like an official Red Rising game, the art in it is technically canon. So if you have some
It is
questions
technically
about
canon.
what people look like, you can go ahead and check out that board game, right, and get some answers before Pierce Brown decides to retcon it.
And some of them I kind of disagree with. Like we were saying earlier, it's like, oh, it's not how I expect them to look or sound. And I think a lot of it is early trilogy stuff too. There's not very many, if any, second trilogy characters.
Hmm.
But it still is a pretty good baseline. Like the art is very good. It's just not always what I think they look like. But I'm also not the be all and all of Red Rising.
Yeah, and I think Pierce Brown and Joel Daniel Phillips, who I'm not sure if you know who Joel Daniel Phillips, for anyone listening, he is like the illustrator for Red Rising. He works with Pierce Brown on all of the official artwork and things like that. I think they're trying to keep it vague because that allows them, room for creative expression, or if they ever get this TV series off the ground, it allows them
Yeah.
to be able to kind of like say, oh yeah, this is officially what they look like. But one thing I did want to bring up since we talked about it is, going back to the audiobook thing. For anyone who has listened to the audiobooks, if you're interested in a new spin on things, there's the graphic audio that's available now, and it's a dramatized representation of the audiobooks. So instead of hearing like all the, oh, she said this or he said that, it's kind of like listening to a play. And it's got music, it's got sound effects, it's really cool. But the one thing that I disliked the most was actually Holiday's voice. So I imagined
Really.
her. Yep. So as someone who's from the Midwest, I actually imagined Holiday's voice as like an honest, hardworking farm girl, right? Like a nice, like Midwest voice, country, rural kind of feel to it. And when I listen to the graphic audio, it's like a Louisiana twang. And
Oh,
so that
really?
really, yeah, that really threw me off. I don't know if anyone else has had an experience like that with the audiobooks, but I was expecting rural farmland and I got Louisiana bayou. And that was definitely strange
That's
to
great.
to hear. Moving on from the house. So we have our first specific question. And again, right, spoiler alerts. Do you think Cassius would have worked with Darrow in the Institute if Darrow had just been honest and told Cassius that he killed Julian in the passage?
I still think no. I think that Cassius, and I think what really drives the feud between them is not really a sense of loss. It's a sense of it's an immaturity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like Cassius, I think Cassius comes from the Bologna family with all these peerless scarred in them, and he has to understand that. He has to understand the situation, and I think that understanding comes a lot later in life,
Right.
not when you're that young. When you're that young, you see death, and it's the end of the world, and that's it. There's no further conversation to be had with Darrow, and so I think Darrow plays that right too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think in the story, there's a lot of hard choices that Darrow has to make, where maybe there's not a correct answer. There's just a best answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I would really like to think that Cassius would respect the honesty and being upfront. But I think his naive view of honor would keep him from accepting the hard truth that, hey, this is how the world works, and you're on the losing side, and sometimes you're on the losing side, and he lost his brother, right? And I don't think he would have forgiven Darrow and worked with him as much as I wish he would have. And like you're saying, because of his family and like his arrogance that he had, it led to pretty much all of the issues in the first trilogy that you see with him. His like self-centered view of honor, right? Almost as using honor as a way to say I'm better than you, instead of the value inherent in honor, which is, you do the right thing no matter what happens. All right. So next one, what do you think of Darrow's decision to destroy the dockyards of Ganymede and Morningstar? Justified, unjustified, cruel, not cruel?
I think the I think even Romulus or someone else says it later on. It's a rational decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Darrow is not best friends with the Raw. He doesn't. I mean, and we don't really know a lot about them in that moment, and he doesn't know a lot about them in that moment, and so he makes a rational decision to protect his work, his interests. There's the quote in Lightbringer. I think it's something along the lines of, "I thought that," or no, this is in reference to the uh, daughters of Athena. So, but I think he apologizes to Diomedes when they're with the Moon Lords. I think this is another example of, if he does, it could be the wrong choice. If he does, it could be the wrong choice. There is no correct answer here.
Yeah.
It's just he made the best call that he thought he could in the moment.
Yeah.
Um, he's a war criminal. That's kind of no design that Darrow
By strict
that Darrow is.
definition.
By strict definition, Darrow is a war criminal and does a lot of war criminal things in this book. It's also a book. You don't have to get behind his crimes. You can just read the book and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
What if he did that in real life? It would be totally messed up and totally immoral. But it's a different world. It's not real.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but
staying
yeah,
out of the
it's a tough
legality of
choice.
this, right? Because obviously genocide and killing civilians is wrong. We'll just go ahead and throw that disclaimer out there.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think as far as character development, right? Darrow's character, and I'm pretty sure he mentioned this in Lightbringer. He was always willing to take the shortest path, and he would
yes,
power his way through it however he needed to. And kind of this like utilitarian view where the ends justify the means. And it's actually juxtaposed with um, the Fear Knight, right? Wow, I can't remember his first name right now. Atlas,
Atlas.
yes, thank you. Atlas Al Ra, right? So Atlas Al Ra is this ends justify the means to the extreme, right? He will do anything, no matter what it is, no matter how evil it is. And it's kind of cool because Darrow is a little bit like that, especially in the first trilogy, and he starts to change after 10 years of war and all that stuff, and he goes the other way. And Lysander is kind of like a mirror version of that, right? So he starts off on the right side, and he's like, I will only do what is right, I will not do what is wrong, right? And Cassius was there to help him influence that. But you can see at the end of Lightbringer where Darrow is going towards the, hey, the ends don't justify the means. Lysander, all of the sudden, with Edme and all this other tools that he has, and destroying the Garter, he is starting to become more utilitarian. So they have a cool kind of like mirrored character development where they're moving in
Yeah.
opposite directions, and they both meet at a crossroads in Lightbringer. Here's probably the biggest thing from the first trilogy, and everybody always talks about it. Everyone has their own emotional roller coaster that they go through. Spoiler alert, right? Did you see the plot twist coming at the end of Morningstar?
I wouldn't say I saw it coming, but I think it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they are talking to Antonia and Cassius in the jail cells, and the incident happens with Severo, I think I turned the book off and I didn't listen to it. I didn't listen to it for a couple of days. I think I just stopped. I was so over it. And then you kind of listen to the next couple of minutes, or you read the next couple of pages, and you kind of start to piece it together. Pierce Brown is a pretty good foreshadower. I don't think he reveals too much. I think definitely by the time you start reading Dark Age and Lightbringer, you can kind of understand his style a little bit more, and you can
Mm-hmm.
understand how he alludes to things. And I think, at looking back, that definitely happens with Cassius and Darrow, how they're talking in Darrow's room. He invites him, he is civil to him, he is asking these kind of leading questions to Cassius about if you could just get up and leave this war, could you? Like, would you if you had that opportunity? And, they kind of talk about that. And so you see that. Now, in the moment when it happened, I was like, hell no, this is the worst thing ever. It's over. This, we're going to have some, I did not expect that exactly to happen.
Right.
But it totally makes sense. And it also shows Cassius's growth, his change. Um, and I have this note here, like many golds, Cassius is a good person inside. It just takes the time or the motivating events for those golds to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And like I said, my wife is not a huge fan of the series, but she did finish the first trilogy for me, and I was in the room when she got to that plot twist, and she turned and looked to me and said, "I can't believe Pierce Brown just killed him."
Yeah, yeah,
And she's one of those readers, one of those people who when you watch a movie she'll be like, oh, that guy's the villain. She's like has this weird omniscience when it comes to storytelling, and she completely fell for it. And it was just really cool to see somebody else go through it.
yeah,
And what a cool twist, I think, because like you're saying, it really ties in Cassius's development as well. It's not just a Deus Ex Machina so that the good guys win, right? It is
right.
Cassius becoming the person that he thinks he is.
It's his struggle.
Yeah, and it's so great to see that in the second trilogy, which we won't get into too much now, that Cassius continues to follow that trend. He almost is forcing himself to do it, even though he doesn't want to, and all of that
Right.
started at the end of Morningstar. Abe, anything else on the first three books before we start going into the Red God predictions?
No, I just say I have this like fondness of like a childhood friend for the first series, for the first trilogy, and then the second trilogy is like the best friend you grew up with forever. I don't know if that makes sense, but like there's this nostalgia around the first trilogy that I think if you read the whole
Mm-hmm.
series, and I would encourage you to do that, um, you'll maybe start to understand.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. So for people who read Harry Potter, I didn't, but my wife did. The series kind of grows with the readers. So the first trilogy almost has this kind of like whimsical, like the good guys win, like they did it, they finally won. Whereas the second trilogy, it becomes real. It almost feels like real life has kind of punched its way into the pages of the book, and it's like, oh man, like I have no idea what's going on now. So I guess we'll go on to the Red God predictions. So where do you think the first battle in the book will take place?
Oh God, it's like makes my heart sink every time I think about Red God. I think, and I did thinking about this one was too, and you sent me this question. I think that the first battle will be a battle for Mars proper. The Rim is back on Darrow's side, and so in my mind, the sail home should be okay. Lysander is going back to link up with the Society. Atalantia, we assume is still holed up on Earth a little bit, or Luna, I think maybe at this point. So I think we'll probably see some sort of battle for Mars. It'll probably start before Darrow gets back, and Mustang will have to do some sort of last stand, sort of holding situation, and then we
Mm-hmm.
could see something like a counter rain, like what Victor did on Phobos. So Darrow could launch his own Iron Rain, or maybe a whole new tactic entirely. I feel like a lot of the weapons in Red Rising have evolved, but maybe not a lot of the tactics.
Uh
So we could see some entirely new, maybe some sort of rim style. Maybe the daughters of Athena have some like underground gorilla thing that they really use or something. We have this kind of open box now.
yeah.
And then I think we'll kind of start to see a development maybe closer to the sun as we go on, but I won't yap too much about that.
Yeah, that so super interesting idea that you just brought up, but like a defensive Iron Rain, like
Yeah.
that honestly, I hope that happens now. Like Mars has been invaded, and Darrow and his fleet launch an Iron Rain to protect the planet that's already been invaded. That would be honestly, I think that would be sick. The amount of chaos going on in that
Right.
kind of a battle would be absurd.
We saw it a little bit on Phobos. Another thing that I just thought of is there's the line where Apollonius is talking to Darrow when they're captured on Venus, and it's okay, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of "When I fall on the last iron rain of this century, your head will be on my pike or on my shield or something." And so I kind of think I kind of again that's the foreshadowing that Pierce Brown puts out. That could be Apollonius's just flamboyance and his way of speaking, or
Hmm.
that could be really good foreshadowing by Pierce Brown that they're going to have this encounter in an iron rain on Mars because we haven't seen that yet. And so I've tried and I've thought a lot about what has been said that has not been resolved, and I think there's a lot. There's a million things that we have to resolve in Red God,
Hmm.
but that could be kind of what we start to see.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait to see it. So, who do you think? And maybe this is a little presumptuous on my part. I'm just gonna throw it out there right now. Atalantia is not winning. All right, like
No,
I don't care who
no.
defeats her. It can be the Rim. It can be Lysander. It could be Darrow. She's not winning. Right, but who do you think will actually defeat her? Do you think it's gonna be Darrow, Lysander, maybe somebody else?
I This one, I originally put Darrow, and now the more I think about it, I don't know if that's true. I still think that we will see a very Darrow-centric story, and I will save a little bit about what I'm talking about for the last question because we kind of get into that. But I really don't know because I think at this point, Atalantia is a side plot point. It is now very much Lysander versus Darrow, the Rim, Mars kind of thing.
All right. Well, so kind of going off that, Lysander is now heading back to the core after pillaging the Demeter's Garter, right? And he has Edme. Where do you think Lysander will use it first and on which color? I mean, do you think he'll use it at all?
Yeah, I think he will use it, but I think it will be in another moment. And I just makes me so sad when I think about it. I call it when he's bitch Sander, when he is backed in a corner and he is has no other option but to go with the last resort. He did it on Venus or on Mercury during the evacuation.
Mm,
And we kind of see the unfortunate results of that. We see it in Hangar 17B. He is backed into a corner, and he has in his mind one choice to make. He doesn't. He can make the right choice, but he makes the wrong choice that keeps him backed in that corner.
mm-hmm.
And so I think it'll be in another moment like that where maybe he's surrounded by a group of Grey Legionnaires or by a Gold Kill Squad or something like that, and he has to use it then. My other theory was that it's used on like a small scale to like wipe out one of the less important colors. No offense to the Browns, but like I feel like the Reds could do what the Browns do. Like I feel like you cannot wipe out the Reds. There are too many of them. They work too much. They contribute too much.
Yeah.
Like the Browns, I kind of just feel like haven't really been explored either a lot. Like we had Clarastes Brown. What was his name? Oh, I forget. I can't remember. Can't remember. But like, we saw him, but we don't see a lot of other Browns.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be kind of. I hope it's like that. I hope that something tragic doesn't happen. But at this point, who knows? Who knows what Pierce is gonna do?
Okay. Yeah, I honestly, in my opinion, I think Lysander is going to end up nuking Atalantia on Luna. Or at
Mm,
least that's where he's going to use it first, right? And it's because Pierce Brown wants to show the power of Edme, right? Like,
right.
imagination is a terrible thing, but once you start seeing the kind of like wild stuff that people can do, that expands your worry, right? So I think he might go
Right.
onto Luna and try and do like a clean slate, wipe everyone out, retank his ancestral home, and then move on from there to Mars, and then everyone's panicking. But
Right.
yeah,
Oh, that
it's
that is
so up in the
interesting.
air.
I like that. We also don't really know how it works. Like, is it a one-time use? Like, if they use it on golds once, is it like is like we don't know how this works. We have no idea
Yeah.
how it's spread. If it's like if he just has to like click a button and like their sigils explode, or like if it's like a poison that they have to like distribute. We have no
Mm.
idea what this looks like. And so that's I think like what you're saying, that's why it's so scary because we don't know.
Staying on the whole Red God prediction kind of flow. Uh, what characters would you like to see more of in Red God?
I'd like to see more of Thraxa. The moment on Phobos with her and Victra, who was another person I'd like to see some more from, was a great moment. It made me smile. It was so badass. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was awesome. I'd like to see some more from Screwface as well. I think we got a good chunk of him in Dark Age, but he's a very important character still. And there is still there's a lot of characters that I think we don't know what's going on. One of them that I thought a lot about is actually Rona. I think Rona is alive. I think that there is some sort of I saw something that someone posited about how Rona is alive with Lyria's brothers on Mercury, and there's some sort of resistance movement there.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think what I want to see too is I want to see a lot of the characters who we think have been forgotten. Maybe Clown or or Rona or those types of characters who we think might be gone.
Right.
And they might come in to save Darrow once or contribute to the fight.
Yeah, and I'm actually really interested to find out more about Lyria's brothers. And that's actually not my number one choice, but I'm going to hit it real quick. So after Lysander's charge against Darrow, the snipers came back and they sent two away, right? And the implication is that it was Lyria's two brothers and her brother-in-law, right? Her sister's husband. But
Right.
only two of them came back, and we didn't know which one was gone. And I haven't even heard that theory before. I would love to find out that Lyria's, brothers or brother-in-law are with Rona on Mercury, just continuing to grind it out, and we see them come back. But if I had to choose one character to see more of, it'd be Pax.
Yes,
There
this is
was
another good answer.
so much buildup for him in Iron Gold and Dark Age, and he's changed so much just over those two books, right? I mean, even in Lightbringer, you can see how he's transformed. So I think it would be great to see a little bit more of him in the series, and especially with I believe the term is Chekhov's gun, but it's kind of like this literary element, right? Where like if you talk about something, you need to do something with it, right? You don't just say things in
Right.
books and then never come back to it. So the fact that Pierce Brown focused on him becoming a fighter pilot at the academy, I think the academy,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
you know, I want to see more of that. Like I want to see him in Ripwings taking down society fighters, or I don't know, going after torch ships again like he did in Dark Age. There's just so much to see of the first child of the Republic. And I really hope we don't miss out on that. I feel like it was a little bit
Yeah.
missed out on Lightbringer.
I think so too, but I think that they're definitely that's another one of those loose ends that we have to tie up in Red God, and I think you're right. I think it will be dealt with. We'll see what he does. I also am super excited because he's a really cool character that we kind of don't really fully understand. Like he's this very shy, very capable kid, who really isn't a kid anymore. He's grown up.
Mm-hmm.
It's his time.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see some of those lovable characters. Hopefully, Pierce Brown gets as many closed loops as possible. So now for the tough discussion. Nobody wants to talk about it. We all know it's going to happen. What character or characters do you think will die in Red God?
I am, and maybe it's because they're close to my heart. I put probably a Telemanus. I could see Niobe, the mother, dying. I kind of don't think it'll be Cavax. I kind of think he's. People will say like, "Oh, he's already gone through so much," but I kind of feel like Pierce Brown doesn't like to do that, except with Darrow. Like Darrow's perennial thing is that it's his struggle. He's always losing. He's always getting back up. But I don't think he really does that with many other people. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm forgetting instances. But I think Kavek's probably lives. Thraxa could totally die, which would piss me off. But um, I also think that we definitely have to lose some more howlers. So probably guys like Callaway, maybe Screwface. And then on the society side, I kind of agree with you that Atalantia will go at some point. But I think that's kind of obvious maybe for most people. I think Apollonius is absolutely going to get his curb stomped by Darrow in with Breath of Stone. I
Hmm.
think that we're very clearly set up this sort of Apollonius with the mind's eye versus
Yep.
Darrow with Breath of Stone moment. There has to be some resolution there, and I don't think Darrow will die, so I kind of think that Apollonius will go. I'm interested to see what you have to think though, because
So you just
I
answered
think
my
there's a lot of
follow-up
opinions on this.
question because I've seen a lot of people on Reddit and Facebook, and they're like, Darrow's gonna die. Like they are going to finish his character arc. He's gonna finally give his life for the cause, and basically go down smiling. People I'd agree with, Apollonius, he's getting killed out, right? And we'll talk more about the ending of the series in the next question, but I do think Apollonius will get beat, just like you said, by Darrow with Breath of Stone. And Apollonius is gonna be stoked about it, right? He is going to
Yeah,
love
he
that
is.
fight, and he's gonna be bested by Darrow, and he's gonna be like, "Oh God, what a good fight! This is what I was looking for," right? Um,
Yeah, he is.
Atalantia definitely going down. I don't know if it's Darrow, Mustang, Lysander. I'd hope it'd be Lysander because I'd like to see him kind of like get revenge for his parents, taking
Mhm.
her out. I don't want Darrow to die, but I could see him going out in a similar fashion to Cassius, right? Like Cassius, my honor remains. I'm willing to die
Mhm.
for what I believe, and I won't let anything get in the way of that. And I think that that would be a cool end for Darrow, but I really don't think he's gonna end up dying in the series. I I think we are gonna see some more Howler deaths. Unfortunately, I really hope it's not Screwface, but he seems the most expendable because I feel like Clown and Pebble are alive. Like they're
Yeah.
out there somewhere. They're still going. I don't think Severo's going down. Hopefully, and I don't think Victra is going down.
I don't think they're going down. I definitely think there's going to be some drama with Severo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hope that there isn't. People have been hypothesizing that the Abomination used the Pandemonium chair on Severo, and there's something messed up with him. I'm kind of 50-50 on that. Like it totally is plausible. It makes total sense. But I also think like he would have snapped by now.
Right.
But we also have the Abomination to deal with, so who knows? Maybe he'll snap then. But I kind of agree with you. I kind of don't think that Severo or Victra will go. I just don't see how it happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, moving on to possibly one of the more important questions we've asked so far. How do you think the series is going to end? Will Darrow get his victory? Will Lysander sit upon the chair and bring back quote unquote order?
I think that Darrow will be the victor in this story. I think it is Darrow's story, and I also think that people who think he's gonna die maybe haven't looked at how he's progressed throughout the books.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of talk, especially maybe in Golden Sun and Morningstar, about how Darrow was this martyr and how he was never going to make it through. There's the Arcos quote that says, "The for those who deal with Empire, for those who die with Empire, the bill always comes in the end." And I think that Darrow will be. I hope. Again, I was saying a lot of things I hope happen, and Pierce Brown is not writing this book for me, and so who knows what's going to happen. But I think that Darrow will realize that he is not meant to. His path is not meant to be the sacrificial lamb. He is destined to be a father to Pax. Now there could be a scenario in which Pax is threatened and that Darrow sacrifices himself. That could be plausible. There's a million things that are plausible.
Yeah.
But I think that Darrow's progression, and especially Ori giving him the path to the veil, has like brought him back. He said himself she saved his soul with that book. And I
Right.
think that Darrow's not ready to go back to sacrifice himself. I think Darrow will win and do and make hard choices, but Darrow wants to be there. Um, I'll bring this up because when I was listening to some of Pierce Brown's like Q&A sessions, this came up and it is stuck with me because I can't quite explain it to myself. Maybe there's a question about like had he thought about how Red God it would end. Like, does he have the last scene written out? And he's like, I do. I think it'll be a nice exit for the story. And he's like, I hope I didn't give anything away there with my words. So like maybe there's nothing to read into there, but I went immediately thinking to Quicksilver's exit. I felt like that was kind of something that we kind of glossed over maybe, and maybe it'll stay glossed over. It would make sense if it stays glossed over too.
Mm-hmm.
But like maybe Darrow leaves with Mustang and Pax or something like that, or maybe something like that happens. And
Right.
maybe it's a happy ending, maybe it's a tragedy. Who knows? I just really don't know. But that has stuck with me, and I can't get the word exit out of my head when Pierce Brown talks about the end of the book.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting that you bring up the phrase exit, right? Like I don't think the universe of Red Rising ends with Red God. And I know for anyone who's been tied into Operation Hazard Bedlam 4.0, the next installment of the Red Rising series is the Book of Lorn, right? And it seems like it's going to be,
So exciting.
yeah, Lorn and Darrow's relationship and how it built up. But I think that it's more of Darrow's end of the story, right? And
Yeah.
I think just the way that Pierce Brown usually resolves his character and kind of resolves the story, we're not gonna get the touchy feely. Hey, the good guys finally win. They did it. They beat the bad guys. I think what we're gonna see is Darrow's uh, acceptance of what comes next, right? Like, and it might not be exactly what he's looking for because, we have the Rim Dominion who has made a tentative peace with the Solar Republic. And we have Lysander's ideas of the hierarchy. And it's like, the Daughters of Athena. Can you really abolish the hierarchy after it's been in place for so long? What I think we're going to see is Darrow finally, whether he dies or not, and I can't tell if he is or isn't, but I do think that Darrow's character will resolve and finally come to a peace, right? And that the next step in this story is going to be Pax's, right? Like the next generation, the first
Right.
generation of people who are just people, not part of the hierarchy. They're not golds. You see that when Darrow finally meets Athena and the owls. I can't remember the specific scene, but it's like, I'm not a red, I'm a human being. And I don't think Darrow's gonna be able to like really dictate the future because he's stuck in the past. He'll never be free of the golden gaze, right? He will always think in the colors hierarchy. So I hope he doesn't die, but I do think what we're gonna find is Darrow winning more than Lysander. I'm pretty sure Lysander's not gonna make it through, and we're gonna see kind of a healing of society, hopefully, right, to where people are able to identify themselves not in the color system, but as they are as human beings. And a little bit more maybe of what the Daughters of Athena were pushing for than what Darrow seemed to have been pushing for.
100%.
All
It's
right.
interesting. Pierce Brown is gonna surprise us with the Red God. It's whether he wants to break all of our hearts or make us feel good. We'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I know whichever death he ends up picking, the rumor is he puts people's names in a hat and then he pulls out a name and that's how people get killed off in the story.
Oh,
Um, I don't believe that because I think his story is too well put together to just be random. Or maybe he's that good of a
yeah,
writer. I don't know. But
yeah. I don't know.
I think we're going to see some real heartbreak in the readers, unfortunately. But we're going to find just the perfect amount of closure for Darrow in his story. And then hopefully a segue into whoever gets to be the next story. I hope it's Pax, maybe it's somebody else. But eventually Darrow story will come to an end, and we will have an awesome potential for the next installment of Red Rising beyond the War of the Solar Republic. All right. Well, I have officially run out of questions. Is there anything else you want to run through? Any other things you want to revisit before we end up closing this session?
No, I would just thank you for having me. It's been super fun to talk about Red Rising. My message for the Red Rising community: if you know how to draw and you like Red Rising, keep drawing art. I cannot draw. I'm gonna try to pick it up in the next coming weeks because I want to understand. I want to see these characters. But if you can draw and you love Red Rising, start drawing some Red Rising characters, please. It would be so awesome to see some more fan art.
Yeah, absolutely. Like more depictions of this series is exactly what we need. Like I want my timeline to just be overflowing, good, bad, ugly, otherwise, of Red Rising fan art because it just makes the world come to life. Even if it's just your perspective and everyone's like, "Well, that's not canon." Who cares? Like if you're willing to put your creative abilities to pen or I guess to screen for however you draw, go ahead and do that. That's definitely more of what this fandom needs. All right. Well, Abe, I really appreciate you coming on the call. And hopefully on the next fan discussion series, we can have some good conversations like this as well. Hopefully I can see you back on House Mars TV for maybe a discussion about Red God after it comes out or something else. But it's great talking to you. Awesome to have a discussion with another fan of the series.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to House Mars TV, and we'll see you next time.